Hey there. Long time no see. This is Brad Lee here. Computer's acting a little flaky right now. I'm really not sure what's going on. Camera wasn't even registering as existing, which has been an ongoing thing I didn't even realize, but that's why I couldn't video chat with one of my friends. I thought it was his connection, but apparently it's my hardware. Hopefully nothing seriously wrong. It seems to be more of a software thing. I've had to reboot, and just a second ago it just spontaneously popped out of recording here, and all of a sudden when I went back in, everything was like super low res. Anyway, maybe it's the light levels or something. I don't know. So, we have a request from my friend Andrew. Of course, he's basically the one who watches this anyway. To talk about game stuff. And YouTube has a new 15-minute limit. We'll see if that's real. See how that goes. Anyway, that should help. It's annoying to have to break these up, so every minute is useful. Probably going to do this one on Nethack and Ultima games. That's the topic of today. But then I think I might also do a link dump just to burn off some more links. And I might record this in higher res or post it. Actually, I recorded it in higher res, but I typically post it in low res. But it really is kind of ugly to see. So I guess maybe I'll upload it in higher res just for the visual delight of whoever watching my incredibly handsome face and this astonishingly visually gorgeous background. Alright, so Nethack and Ultima. Two of the greatest games ever created, effectively. I'm talking about the Ultima series in general, though specifically I tend to isolate that down to Ultima 3, 4, and 5, because those are the ones that I personally played and found to be the best. I did play Ultima 6. I played later Ultimas. I've seen pretty much all of them. Ultima 1 and 2 were kind of cool, but they were basically they were pretty awesome in their own way. But they were kind of like prototype of Ultima. The game really became sort of recognizable in Ultima 3 and developed in Ultima 4 and reached a peak of perfection in Ultima 5. Anyway, I guess I'll just talk about whatever here. I don't really have a plan. 15 minutes. I'll just fill 15 minutes, basically. So Ultima, made by Lord British, a.k.a. Richard Garriott, who's still around, still a millionaire, still doing interesting stuff. He owns part of the moon. He owns a Soviet, moon rover. I don't know if Andrew knows that. Recently, he got paid multi-million dollars because he was fired while in orbit, while he was working for some company. Light is kind of interesting. I guess it's the light from the sunlight. Makes me look kind of like Two-Face because I have a nice division right down the middle. That's right. This is Light Brad. Yeah, okay, it is the light from the window. This is Light Brad, and this is normal Brad. So Light Brad is my cosmic self, I guess. And random thing. I see that plant back there. I cut my peace lily in half and repotted it. And did an okay job, actually. That one took really well. That's the new pot. The other one actually is also alive and fine, but the thing is, I guess I didn't put it far enough down into the new dirt. So it's actually got parts of it are kind of like that. They're a little bit loose in the soil. They'll probably eventually grow even more roots out and stabilize, but I'm just going to leave it for now, I guess, because they're fine. I could actually split them up into a dozen. This is totally off topic, but whatever. I could split them up into a dozen plants, which is kind of cool. I'd actually like to do that, but I'm so poor I can't even afford really a $5 bag of dirt. I mean, I could, I can get it, but it's definitely low on the priority list. Be nice when I can actually afford to buy a $5 bag of dirt to put new plants in. And of course, you gotta buy some more planters. I've got a limited amount of those. But peace lilies are cool. It's kind of interesting is that effectively that plant there, like every main bunch of stalks is effectively a plant. I've come to realize I could cut that off, just take a sharp knife, slice through the root ball, stuff that chunk into a pot, and voila, new peace lily. So I actually could make quite a few of them, which I think was cool because they remove crap from the air, and and they look nice and so on. And they really aren't that hard to take care of. You don't have to water them that often. I've learned. Okay, I guess we're talking about plants today. An interesting trick I've learned actually is with watering plants. You don't just water them once in a while. What you do is you essentially you think about nature, right? Rain, basically, what happens with rain is it soaks everything, and then it stops for a while, for a few days, and then soaks it again. Well, that's what you do with a plant. You basically feed it water until it comes out the bottom, indicating that the water has penetrated all the way through the soil and the root ball, and you just keep on watering it until basically it seems saturated. Then you leave it, make sure it's not sitting in its own old water, obviously. And then you just put it somewhere and it'll be fine for like days, days and days. And then eventually it'll sort of, droop a little, and that'll mean that it needs water. Or you can just check the soil with your finger. You can stick your finger in, and if the top inch is dry, like a good inch down, then basically needs water. If it's damp down there, then it's still got some, and don't worry about it. But I've been doing that, and it works really good. So there's always something to learn. Anyway, so back to Ultima. Richard Garriott. Yeah. Anyway, he got paid millions of dollars for being fired while in orbit on this leave from this other game company he was working for. So he filed suit and made a few more million off of that, I guess, which is cool. Anyway, he created Ultima 1 when he was like 16. And he was a professional game. I mean, he sold it when he was 17, I think, or he was selling them and making money when he was like all the way back then. I think he was a millionaire by the time he was 20 with Ultima 4 or something. Cool guy, excellent game designer. Though I haven't really heard of much else that he's done, but Ultima's definitely his masterpiece. What made it so good? Well, lots of different things. I mean, there's lots of things I loved about Ultima, but of course, the real thing that everybody knows about if you know anything about Ultima is that he actually, the way it went was Ultima 3 was really awesome, but it was still kind of a standard dungeon bash. You just roam around killing everything, killing monsters that attack you. But it didn't really have that extra level. But it was a really cool world. Britannia is really cool. It just works really well. And then in Ultima 4, actually, that was the huge. Ultima 4 was a total landmark. Still is a total landmark. Still are not any very many games at all that even come close to Ultima 4. You still play it today, and it's an awesome game. Because Ultima 4 actually introduced one of the things about it was the avatar. The avatar is you coming from this world to the Ultima world, and every game has that. I mean, most games rather. You're basically playing the game. So I mean, but Ultima made it kind of meta because it acknowledged that you weren't from this world when you're playing. So of course, what that does is that's more realistic because that's what's actually happening. So of course removes a layer, and you feel more immersed in the game because it's like people in the world are acknowledging, it's the Avatar. He's not from here. He's from another world. So it makes more sense. You're not going. You're like, all right, cool. You can get into it. And in Ultima 4, they actually had the virtues. They had They have this whole morality system in Ultima, which is awesome, based on the 8 virtues. And they all make sense. They're very good. It's actually a pretty damn good breakdown. It's a philosophy, system and everything. And the whole game is like, what is it? There's let's see if I can name them here. Oh, and there's of course eight. What is it? There's the virtues, and there's the. can't remember what the name of the anti-virtues are, but there's there's the opposite one. But there's like valor, compassion, sacrifice, humility, spirituality, um, honesty. And they all have their own color. They have their own mantra, like Om, that kind of thing. It's just this whole really awesome system. So you had a lot of different factors. So you had this excellent world, Britannia. You had this very fascinating sort of moral and spiritual and philosophical system built into the game. You had what other elements? Well, I mean, just in game terms, it was awesome too because you had dungeons and you had they were just hidden. Well, the world itself was interesting. I mean, it had an immense sense of freedom in Ultima. Most games really rail you. Like that's the thing. Ultima didn't have any kind of railroading. Like you literally were there. You could just roam around the world, do whatever the hell you want. And it's just that perfect balance where you're not roaming around and it feels like a big empty world like some of these worlds are. You're like, what am I doing here? It was that perfect balance. It was always interesting. And there's no behind the scenes. There's a text tree, for the characters for their dialogue, but you don't explicitly see it. So you know what I mean. Nowadays it's all like yes, this. It's boiled down to way too simple structure. But back then, of course, it was based on keywords. And you eventually learned that. I mean, the keys were name, job, and then whatever else they were talking about. One of those words. If some ghost said, oh, it's so lonely here. He'd say lonely, and he's like, I'm lonely because I lost my family. Family, like you know what I mean? Like it's pretty sensible. It's pretty logical. But it's cool because you could ask them anything. And since it's not all based around this obvious text tree, you'd be making notes. You'd be like, talk to Ghost in Magencia. Gave me a clue about this, and you could visit later on. You'd be like visiting towns, and you could go. You'd find it about magic armor or some special thing, and you just could go and ask everybody in town about it. And then you might get lucky, and one guy's like, oh yes, I've heard of that. It's like, oh, okay, cool, you found another thing. So it felt real. It's like these characters, it wasn't just, oh, well, I talked to that guy. I know he's absolutely tapped out and he's useless. You never knew in Ultima. So again, it was more like a real world. You're like, maybe I'll visit that sea town and see if anybody knows anything. I'll go talk to them and ask them about, the amulet or whatever you're looking for. Ultima had ships. It had wind. It had a moon cycle. So all that was. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff developed in Ultima 4. Ultima 5 is like a refinement. Ultima 5 is an absolute. I mean, it still blows my mind. Ultima 5 still totally blows my mind. It's like I still feel a special glow when I think of it because it was astonishing. Because in Ultima 5, the world is taken up another level because it has night and day. It has weather. It has wind. It has moon cycles. All of this just goes on seamlessly, no, it's not a hassle, it's just going on in the background, but it all makes a difference. Every single character has a routine. They're not just standing in one place going, hey, I've got an arrow, I've got an exclamation mark above my head, like in World of Warcraft, click me and I'll do something. They're literally going about their lives on a day and night schedule. At night, they go home to their house, they're sleeping in their bed, you know what I mean? Like there's a day, just like real world. There's a day world and a night world. You go to a town at night. There might be a thieves hanging out someplace in an alleyway. He's not there in the day because he's doing whatever. He's sleeping during the day probably. In Ultima you'd sleep in an inn and you get woken up because there was like a ghost haunting the inn. Yeah, it was like a real friggin' world. Which of course it used to be renowned as a marriage destroyer because people would, guys would play Ultima and they'd be like, yeah, honey, whatever, until the wife is totally fed up and just divorces them or whatever, and they're like, yeah, you're divorcing me, okay, fine, I'm playing Ultima. But man, it was and Ultima 5 carried on it still had the virtues and the flaws and the avatar and each virtue also had a shrine. So you could go to a spot physically on the map, And those actually kind of led, except the shrine, I think it was spirituality, was hidden. It wasn't on the map. You had to actually